and this is Drunk on D&D. This is your host Austin, and I'm here with my co-host Travis. Travis, how are you doing?
I am very good.
So this is our spin-off of Trash Talk Podcast, our show where we get drunk and talk about movies, TV shows, comic books, and games. This is Drunk on D&D, where we don't really talk about D&D. We talk about games like D&D, other tabletop RPGs, and we talk about a different one every time we do a new episode. And we always do it while we're kind of drunk, a little bit blasted, a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit trashed, a little bit under influence, as Lewis would say. So this week we're talking about John Harper's Blades in the Dark. Next episode we'll be talking about Forbidden Lands, but this episode we are talking about Blades in the Dark. This is our spin-off off Trash Talk Podcast, as I said. So, I am here with my co-host Travis, and I'm also here with Jose and Lewis, who joined us for last week's episode of reviewing Season 1 and Season 2 of Punisher. First with Jose. Jose, how you doing?
I'm doing great, I got a good buzz going. I think I'm about 5 drinks in. And yeah, I'm still a little crossfaded. So, it's going to be a good episode.
Lewis, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty great, man.
That's
I
good.
drank a lot, and I've also smoked a lot, so I'm doing pretty good.
That's good. Glad you're doing all right. So, we're talking about John Harper's Blades in the Dark for our Drunk on D&D episode. In this episode and all of our other episodes, we'll be taking 5 different aspects of the RPG and we'll be giving our rating, and at the end we'll see out of 10 overall what is our rating. So we'll be rating every RPG on 5 different things. 1, we'll be talking about character creation and advancement. 2, world and lore within the world of the game. 3, game mechanics, how the game is run. 4, the playability, how the game actually runs and how much fun or not you guys had playing the game. And 5, replayability. First, we're talking about Blades in the Dark for this episode. And for each part, we're going to give it a rating from 0 to 2. 2 is you liked it. And if you didn't like it as much as you liked it, you can give it less than a 2. And then after the 5 different parts of an RPG, we'll see out of 10 what we gave it. So, first, for Blades in the Dark, it's an assassin. It's kind of steampunkish game where you play as a crew, either an assassin group or like a thug or an occult group in the world of Duskfall. Let's talk about character creation and advancement in advancing your character after you've been playing for a little bit. Jose, do you have any thoughts about character creation in the world of Blades in the Dark?
Yeah, I think for Blades, the game is very simple, and I think that's like the best part about it, is that unlike most role-playing games where there's like things you can do when they're like specified in terms of their effects and stuff like that. Like for Blades, what makes it stand out is that sure, there's set things you can do, but the way you can do them aren't as limited because you can kind of interpret things in a way you want them to. Like maybe like your abilities or like what category they fall under in terms of like how you roll. Like there's just a lot of leeway in terms of how it can be played and interpreted.
Yeah, I would also agree. Very easy, pretty quick to get into the game of Blades in the Dark. You make your character based on the game your group wants to make, but it doesn't really take that long to make your character, and you can choose your character based on the group of the crew that your group is making pretty easily, and while also making it individual to the character as well. You're not just another assassin or another enforcer. Out of 2, I would definitely say I like making a character in Blades in the Dark, I'll definitely give it a 2 out of 2. Yeah, very easy and pretty fun making a character, and it's easy enough. And you can always advance and add more points to your character or more abilities to your character. Jose, would you give it a 2 as well? Did you like making characters and advancing your character in Blades in the Dark?
Oh yeah, because it's not very linear, kind of like how D&D would be, where like you just do missions, and it's always like, oh, get this item or do this. It's always like we get XP, sort of based on how we do things during the mission, not necessarily if it's accomplished or not. So I think like making a character and leveling it up is a lot more personal, and you kind of see like what your playstyle is.
Yeah. So
So it's a
Lewis,
2 out of 2 for sure.
you made a couple characters for this game. Talk to us quickly about character creation and advancement of the character within Blades in the Dark.
Okay, yeah. Blaze in the Dark character creation is pretty simple. I think it only takes like 5 minutes, which is like saying something compared to how much time I've spent making other characters and other RPGs. I've literally spent hours reading a book trying to figure out what kind of character to make. But with like Blaze in the Dark, it's simple. You kind of just like bing bam boom, like this is your character. You know, you follow this sort of template. As far as advancement goes, I think advancement might actually be the best part about Blades in the Dark characters, because when you play Blades in the Dark, you're not necessarily like locked into any one like typical RPG archetype, right? Like, so you could play, for example, the Spider, right, which is kind of like their abilities are more having to do with sorting things, but you could totally advance your skills in such a way that you could kind of be the tank, you know? So I think that's cool. The way you advance your character is basically you get experience for doing so many things during a mission, which I think is pretty cool as well, because then it kind of forces you to play your character according to your character's goals.
Makes sense.
A pretty neat aspect of it.
Travis.
So I'd give it a 2 out of 2 for character creation.
Yeah, no, I agree. Talk about character. It's been a while since you did yours, but making your character and advancing your character before we move on to world and lore with Blades of the Dark.
So as far as advancing, it is really good when the DM remembers that you actually get XP at the end of the mission and just doesn't forget about it. So it's really fun. It's really kind of quick and easy. As far as character creation, I do wish there was a couple more like races or a couple more like different races that you could choose from. But it is really quick. It's easy, and I do like it a lot.
So out of 2, what would you give it?
I give it a 2.
Yeah, very easy. You like it. Number 2, world and lore. This, we take the RPG of the week and we talk about the world it creates and the lore behind it. In Blades in the Dark, you play a crew in Duskval, a kind of steampunkish world where the sun has gone out. The only light comes from lamps and electricity, and there's a lot of smog and smoke everywhere. The world is not very pretty at all. It's mostly a kill or be killed world of gangsters and different groups of gangs as they try to compete against each other, as well as having occult aspects to it with demons, ghosts showing up, as well as just gang on gang warfare. For me, I would give it a 2 out of 2 easily, as my favorite part of Blaze in the Dark is the world and the lore, as I kind of love, it's kind of like a Dishonored world, Dishonored, the video game stealth assassin game, but with having more elemental aspects to it. So easily, I would give it a 2 out of 2 for world and lore. Travis, what would you give it for world and lore?
Lore, I will say, is pretty good. I've seen a couple games that I liked a little bit better as far as like lore goes, but definitely up there. As far as the world goes, even though so far what I've seen of it is like relatively small and kind of compact, there's a lot of depth in it and like a lot of like kind of customization to it. So I really like it. It's really nice. I'll give it a 2.
Okay, good. You like it as well. If you guys have a shot ready, it is time we take a shot. Are you guys good to go?
Yep.
Jose?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay. So, cheers. Travis and I are ready to rumble, and let's take our shot.
Cheers, boys.
Ugh. Okay. Jose, talk to us about world and lore with it Blaze in the Dark.
All right. I think that Blades in the Darkest lore is very interesting because there's just like these predisposed gangs that exist. You know, they each have a ranking, and every time we go on a mission, like we can get in contact with, you know, our contact with like our guy or whatever, and it's just like all that can be used to our advantage or our disadvantage. You know, depends because you know we also have like enemies, and I definitely think that all that makes the game like have higher stakes because it's like every time you accomplish something, there's either an obstacle or an aid to come out of it, which will then either help us out on new mission or hurt us more. So definitely the lore and just like all these other characters surrounding us, they make the game as interesting as it is.
Okay. So, would you give it 2 out of 2 as well?
A 2 out of 2.
Okay, cool. Lewis?
As far as the lore goes for Blades in the Dark, I think it's pretty cool. I'm really into the whole steampunk, supernatural type of vibes from it. I think that the world that they built is pretty interesting. I think it's easy to be enthralled by the types of things that exist within this world. That being said, though, I think that the world which you play in Dustball is kind of limited because I think either way you play it, no matter what, you're pretty much going to be in one of these areas. Granted, the areas are very large. There's a lot you can do within them. And I don't really think that it detracts from the game that you're limited to this one area because that's kind of the whole nature of the game. The game is to be part of a game. So I'll give it a 2 out of 2 because the world is it's very convincing, and I think they did a good job of kind of making you believe in the characters and the characters that exist within the world.
So we all give it 2 out of 2. I definitely agree. The world and lore within it is very, very cool. This kind of dark skies, no sun, steampunkish supernatural world where it's gang against gang. There's so many different gangs within the world. And the book goes into every single gang, who runs it, what is their goal, where is their faction, what are they based out of. We are going to go to step 3, which is game mechanics, how the game is run. So the game is run on a d6 basis. You put points into the abilities you want to be good at, and you roll dice based on that. So you might roll 1, 2, 3 d6s, and a 1, 2, and 3 is considered a failure. A 4 or 5 is a partial success, and a 6 is considered a success. And when you roll your dice, you always take the highest result. So if your highest result is a 3, you have failed at it. If it's a 4 or 5, it's a partial success. Or if you got a 6, it's a total success. And you can always add dice by taking a devil's bargain, where the game master offers a solution where you might gain a dice but at a cost, or if your teammates assist you, or if you push yourself. So it's all based off d6s, no over dice needed, but it's based on how much you can push yourself and how much your teammates can help out, as well as the devil's bargain the GM adds. Jose, what is your thoughts about the game mechanics of how the game runs within Blades in the Dark?
I think the game as a whole, like it runs pretty well, and like I already said, like it's very simple, and the fact that it is just like based on a D6 it makes it much easier to pick up than like you know D&D. I'll keep making the comparison simply because sure D&D is simple after you've played it enough times, but for Blades it's simple just off the bat because you're like, all right, I need this much to make a success, and you know since it's a D6, the odds are about 50-50 on like successes. So it makes it a bit more interesting simply because you're like, oh, I have this idea and I think it'll work. Let's see. You're like, oh, I get a pair of fours. All right, it sort of works, and we kind of roll with that. The story then builds from there. Like it's all based on how we make things happen.
Lewis, what's your thoughts? Oh, actually, sorry, Jose. What would you give it out of 2?
Oh yeah, a 2 out of 2.
Okay, cool. You
Yeah,
liked it. Okay, cool. It worked for you. That's good. Lewis, what about you? Your thoughts on the game mechanics?
The game mechanics for Blades in the Dark, very simple, very easy to learn. I remember the first time we played it, and it was like riding a bike, even though I had never played the game before. You only got to worry about D6s, which makes a hell of a difference going from D&D or like Star Wars RPG. Like you only got to know about D6s. That's it. No D8s, D20s, none of this other crap. You can literally just jump into the game, and it's not that hard to learn mechanics. Because the mechanics are so simple, the game feels like it flows much quicker and more fluid. And I think that is also a big plus. Definitely makes it easier to get through missions. We're not like waiting a long time to for someone to figure out which die to use or how to go back and look at the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easy to learn. It's simple, and you can roll with it.
Yeah, once you get it, you can just go with it. Like, not much time for pause. You can just keep going. Travis, what is your thoughts about the mechanics in the game?
Yeah, I'm probably going to agree with everyone else. Having the D6, even though I've noticed it can be kind of challenging just using the D6, not using other die, it does make it simple. It simplifies it a lot, and the whole game, like all the mechanics of it, are really simple, very easy to learn. So I do like it a lot. I'll give it a 2 out of 2.
Cool. Okay. So now we are at step 4, which is playability. This is what the game is all about. No matter what we think about the world and lore, no matter what we think about how the game is run, it doesn't matter except when it comes to what we thought about the game once we played it and the options we got once we actually played it. Of course, it could differ based on the game master you have. You could have a better time or worse time based on the game master you have, but based on who you had and the times you've had with it, which for you guys, it's all been with me as the game master. Let's talk about what you do within the game, the times you've had doing it, what you guys do in the game, and what makes it different from other games. Uh, let's go with Jose. Jose, talk to us about playing the game itself of Blades in the Dark. Not mechanics, everything, but what you do and what's the fun you get out of it.
The fun in the game definitely comes from just the fact that it's a bit looser and a lot more open to interpretation. So it's like, we'll be pulling off something, and you only got to know if it falls into like certain categories. And you're like, all right, I can roll this many dice, and then let's see what happens. Like, all right, that's just a start. But then it's like literally everything you do has a repercussion. Then, all right, like the police are hot on us, or this gang then wants an issue with us, or like whatever happens. But just the fact that things are a bit more random and always have consequences make the game interesting to play every time.
Okay, cool. So what would you give it? Would you give it 2 as well?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, going off what Jose said, the game is very interesting in that, unlike D&D or some other games, it's not a continuous story. Every time you play it, it's a new mission. You accept a new job. You try to do it. You accomplish the heist or the job. You get paid for it. You accept the problems that had with it, you might have screwed up and you take more heat from it. Maybe the blue coats, which are kind of the cops in the game, maybe they're more onto you now. Maybe there's some other gangs that are kind of on you and they're kind of being a pain in the ass to you. But you deal with that. The game is very interesting in that it's less about the characters and more about the gang itself and the gang versus other gangs within the world, which I think is very interesting. I definitely easily give it a 2 out of 2. It's a very unique game that's very unique to other RPG games as well. Lewis, talk about the playability, just actually playing it. This is a game we used to play all the time when we were at college. When I was at work, you guys would come over, you would bring a 6-pack, we would just play the game for a while, drink some beers. Janitors might come by and be like, yo, just put those beers away. But in general, we never got busted for anything. We just had a good time drinking a couple beers when we played this game. Talk about the playability of Blades in the Dark.
Blades in the Dark. I definitely do lit playing Blades in the Dark. You know. But yeah, Blades in the Dark is pretty. Like I said before, it's a pretty easy game to get into because of how simple the mechanics are. You can pretty much anything that you can think of. That's about as far. You know, the limit is the sky, as they would say. You know, once you get into the game, you pretty much just you kind of like figure out what things your characters are good at. Like, are they good at talking their way out of things? Are they good at, you know, using muscle or cunning? And you kind of incorporate that into the world. So like every time you play, it could be something different. You're incorporating some sort of situation or some aspect of the world. You kind of just like your character is like doing things on the fly. And I think it's cool because you're not really going to have any 2 sessions that are the same way because you're coming up with something different each time to get the job done, which I think is really cool. And you got to team up with your friends, which is another thing, and I think is a pretty adds to the playability of the game. Because then you got all these other people, and you got them all working together, and everyone's kind of like playing off each other, and it, you know, makes it just a lot more fun. So I give it a 2 out of 2.
Oh yeah, definitely. Travis, we're gonna go to you about playability. The times you've had playing it, you've played a little bit less than Jose and Lewis, but you played a couple sessions with Karina and I. Talk about actually playing the game itself.
So overall, I do like playing the game. My biggest downfall, I guess, with the game is after each kind of mission that you do or kind of like job, you have a bit of downtime to do whatever you want to like reduce heat for your team or maybe indulge in your vice, which is kind of like it helps heal you, I guess, in a way. That part always seemed a bit kind of boring to me because it doesn't go into a lot of depth on anything that you do. You don't have to really roll for that much. But as far as like missions and stuff, like being able to adapt and overcome in a matter of seconds, because you genuinely do not know what's going to happen because you're either going to roll really poorly or really well. It does make it a lot of fun and a lot of interesting to see kind of the ideas that your teammates and even yourself kind of come up with to get out of like sticky situations. And of course, with how simple it is, like just rolling wise and stuff, it's a lot of fun. I do like it. I'll give it a 2 out of 2.
Okay, you would also give it a 2 out of 2. Okay, that's good. So now we are at our last section, which is replayability. With all of our games, we could have a fun time playing it the first time, but this isn't a board game like Monopoly or Sorry or whatever that you play it once, if in a couple months you might play it again. It's a different game. RPGs are about continuing with the character. In this case, it's continue with the gang, and I want to talk about the replayability. For me, it's a little bit different than D&D or some other RPGs where you continue with a quest. The next time you play, you continue with that session, you continue with that quest, and you continue on. Almost every game is just a different heist, a different thing that's going on, and you are always trying to advance your gang. Oh, excuse me, but every time you play it, it's a different mission, which is kind of interesting. Unlike D&D, where you always kind of continue on one major quest line or mini arcs, this is just every time you play it, It's a different mini mission. You get it, you get it done, you try to advance the crew. It's very cool how they do it. But I want to hear from you guys. Jose, what's your thoughts on the replayability factor of Blades in the Dark? For me, I'm going to give it a 1.5 in that I really love replaying it because I like going back and trying to advance the crew. But unlike D&D and some other RPGs, there's not a continuous quest line that makes you try to come back to it because every game is a different session and a different mission, so you're less likely to come back to it. It's more of like a one shot, but you still try to advance the crew and try and make your crew better as a whole. So I'm still going to give it 1.5 out of 2.
All right. I'm actually gonna give my rating at the start, and I'm gonna say that it was a 1 out of 2 for me. It's not like it's terrible, but I think the fact that it's even though we played it in succession a lot, I think that at the end of the day, it's an RPG that can be played just like sometimes. I think the fact that we just had as many plans as we did kind of kept us going for like consecutive days or weeks. But I think ultimately, like the game, it can be picked up whenever, and most of the things you had already done, I want to say in the grand scheme of things, are inconsequential because a lot of things just happen randomly. So it's not like D&D where it's like there's always something that we can come back to, and like it won't really happen without us. It's like the game could actually kind of happen without us actually ever playing because the NPCs kind of interact with themselves in their own special way, where we just add a different flavor to it.
Okay, fair enough. Alright, so who's just giving it a 1 out of 2? I feel he's saying, Lewis, what is your thoughts on the replayability factor of Blades in the Dark?
I think I kind of agree with what Jose is saying because while the game is totally like each session is like something different. You go and some difference going on, but that's like what the game is. You know what I mean? Like we don't have like a clear cut goal, like a long con. We don't have like some grand equation that we're trying to solve. It's like each time we go in, whatever happens is like at the mercy of the dice. So it kind of is, in a way, it's kind of like almost like it's almost like a chore. You know what I mean? Like each thing is kind of like on a list, and it's gonna be one of these things that we're doing. We're just gonna do it a different way today. So I think once you kind of realize that's going on, it detracts from it a little bit. Not to say that it hurts the game a whole lot, because we always find ways to make it interesting. So I think I'll give it a 1.5 out of 2.
Okay, cool.
Because I do like it, but I don't think anyone can deny how clearly generated the missions are.
Yeah. So, Travis, what is your thoughts on the replayability factor of Blades in the Dark?
So, like you and Lewis, I'm going to go with a 1.5.
Mm.
And my reasoning is going to be it's not so much that I'd recommend playing it like one time after another. It's kind of one of those games where if you're in the middle of an RPG like Dungeons and Dragons or Deadlands or something, and you just want to break from all that, like continuous same old mission, same old every day, throw that in the middle of it and just have a bit of fun, and then go back to kind of like one of your main RPGs. So I think that's what it's good for, is like just kind of throwing it in there, doing one or two kind of like little missions in the game, and then just maybe like putting it aside for a couple weeks or a month or so, and then coming back to it again for like no reason at all, and just being able to pick up wherever the hell you really want to, because one mission after the next is not really following each other. So I'll definitely give it a 1.5.
Okay, cool. We've reached the end of this Drunk on D&D. For ratings, Travis and Austin and Lewis gave it a 9.5 out of 10, while Jose gave Blades in the Dark a 9 out of 10. Overall, we all gave it a 9 or higher out of 10, so we definitely all recommend this game. Before we end this, what is some last things you would like to say about this game before we conclude? For me, for avid RPG fans out there, I would definitely try Blades in the Dark. It's pretty easy to pick up. It's a game, like Travis said, you can just play between your main big quest lines. You're doing D&D, you're doing upper RPGs, you got like a big scheme plan in mind. There's a huge quest going on, but now you just want something to just go between the middle and just do something different for a while. Blades in Dark is that game. It's something completely different, but every single session is different as well, for better or worse. You get to play a cool game, you guys all work together, and you try to advance that game as a whole. So I would definitely recommend Blades in the Dark, as I think we all do. Jose, some last thoughts on Blades in the Dark?
Yeah, I think that definitely everyone should try Blades at least once. You'll definitely have a lot of fun. Just like Travis has said, it's one of those games you can play between any RPG, which is exactly what we did. It wasn't like our main RPG ever. It was just like, all right, we're gonna play it for like a couple nights, and then we'll come back to it like next week. We'll do the same thing. Just like it's a good break in the action because it doesn't take as much thought as like some RPGs where like every sort of mission we did was such a scheme. So I definitely think that people should try it out, and if it does become your main RPG, then kudos to you. But I honestly think it's just something you can just play sometimes, and you enjoy it all the same.
Cool, cool, cool. Lewis, last thoughts on Blades in the Dark?
Blades in the Dark, great game. I would definitely recommend it to anybody who is thinking about getting into RPGs, or anybody who wants to get into RPGs but they're afraid that it might be too much for them to handle, which is totally understandable. D&D takes a lot out of you, it takes a lot of consideration. But Blades in the Dark, it's a good starter, very clean cut. You can pretty much follow the directions, and the book will take you the rest of the way to having a great adventure. So, yeah, I recommend it to anybody who likes RPGs or is wanting to get into art.
Okay, cool. Last thoughts on Blades in the Dark for Travis?
Yeah, I'll agree with Lewis on that one. Either a starter kind of RPG, sorry, to just like get you going, get you into it before you kind of like get into some of the bigger ones, aka Dungeons and Dragons, Deadlands, something like that. Or again, like I said before, something you just kind of throw in the middle if you're already playing a lot of RPGs. Just something if you want to do it on the side, maybe even if you want to just start a little group to meet once a week or something and just have a bit of fun. It's definitely a great game to do that. So I do highly recommend it.
All right, cool. Well, this was the first episode of Drunk on D&D. We're all a little bit tipsy, but hopefully you had a good time, and you also learned a lot about John Harper's fantastic game, Blades in the Dark. Thank you, Travis, for being here. Hopefully you had a good time.
I definitely did.
Jose, thank you for being here, and thanks for talking about Blades in the Dark.
It's always a pleasure, and Blades definitely deserve the spotlight.
Of course, yeah. And Lewis, thank you for being here.
No problem. I always love having a reason to drink.
Yeah, of course. We all do. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or at this point, we'll probably be up on Podbean or Libsyn, and also hopefully iTunes, where you can subscribe and follow and download our podcast, where we have either Trash Talk Podcast or Drunk on D&D. Listen to both of them. Do whatever you want. But hopefully you enjoyed it and had a good time. This is Austin and the rest of Trash Talk Podcast and Drunk on D&D crew. Good night. Have a good time. Don't be too sober.